I've been given 5 minutes to capture something of the last 5 years of my life, which should have been a life of retirement as a public servant, but has been eaten up by the worst human tragedy, I think, since my lifetime began in the Second World War. We have a real issue of injustice in our country. It's good to see you here, because somebody here is counting how many Australians care enough to come out on a Friday evening, and how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of others have gathered around the nation. We are part of a people's movement for justice and decency. It never was illegal to seek asylum and protection from persecution. For me, Australian policy and practice since 1992 has been wrong, wrong, wrong. Labor needs to acknowledge and change that policy. We need a humanitarian policy. We want a country that is compliant with international law, and we want a fair go for asylum seekers. I reflect on the last 5 years, and I've been busy with this since 2001. And in this last 5 years, I have understood more about imprisonment hell, detention hell. It was never warranted to lock up people and to take away their freedom. They are not criminals. All who have been involved with this system of mandatory indefinite detention and offshore processing and offshore indefinite holding of human beings who are not criminals have been damaged. It's not only the asylum seekers who are damaged, it's also all the people who have held up that system. They have been corrupted. We've had 12 reported deaths, but you and I know of the hundreds, the many hundreds of unreported, broken human beings. We know of the suffering secondhand, and we have a great sense of the hopelessness that is the culture of detention. And politicians don't care. They don't care. They don't care enough to stop doing this calculated cruelty. They don't care enough. Often teenagers, children ask me, why do we do this to the people who come on boats, the men, women and children who want to be safe, who want to live in freedom? And I say to them, could you hurt or deny freedom to another human being, someone just like you, if you thought that they were equal to you? No, they say. We're all equal. In religious schools they say, but we're all God's children. Are the men, women and children on Nauru and in PNG not human beings just like us? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're just like the citizens of multicultural and multi-faith and multilingual Australia, are they not? We've been fed lies since 2001. All that time, boat arrivals are legal, but the Courier Mail doesn't tell us that. It is no crime to seek protection from persecution. And if you are one of those who's fled for their lives, why would Australia imprison them, hide them away from sight, and mistreat them so grossly? Shame indeed. There is a confusion, deliberate and ideological, made between asylum seekers who pay and make their own perilous refugee journey and the refugees who are cherry-picked, the refugee migrants selected by immigration officers in the UNHCR camps offshore. They're flown here, given generous settlement support and welcomed. But all of them, those who come on boats and those who come on planes, if they are refugees, they meet the same criteria. All the boat people I have known since the Indo-Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Lao and the Cambodians came in the 1980s, all the people I have known and witnessed settling successfully are amongst the most brave, the most freedom-loving people I know. Good citizens and great family people. For us, in this movement of human rights and a fair go for refugees, it is the P word that matters, the P word. Kids love it when I tell them that. Because P stands for persecution, and it's persecution that defines a refugee and not their mode of travel to Australia. Yet, persecution is not well understood by so many Australians who only read the Courier Mail and other news limited press and only watch commercial television. So you and I have to tell our fellow Australians what persecution actually means in the lives of men, women and children. Thank God for social media. It's broken down some of the isolation of offshore prisons. And I here acknowledge the writers, the brilliant writers, the filmmakers, the songwriters, the poets, the artists from prison. They and their friends who have humanized suffering and told their compelling refugee stories. This is a welcome development in the last 5 years. But I feel a heavy burden of grief at the lives lost and so badly damaged by the action of Australian governments and people. The calculated cruelty is being called out and must end. It's people like us speaking to our neighbours, our colleagues, our wider networks about the unwarranted, disgusting cruelty, the deprivation of liberty and of the future of children that will change the policy and practices. I remember baby Farouz, born here in Brisbane, denied citizenship by birth. He was called an illegal maritime arrival. I remember baby Asha, threatened to be returned to Nauru where her care and development would be compromised. I remember the bodies of young men in Brisbane hospitals and morgues and the coroner's inquiries. I remember the victims of sexual assault, those who self-harmed in despair, and the seriously ill whose medical management was third world while in the care of Australia. Shame indeed. And I remember the hundreds of men, women and children held in the Brisbane detention centre, the separated families, deliberately separated, their isolation, and the nightmare of the bureaucratic rules which make visiting them so very difficult. I remember with deep concern a Hazara man currently in the Gold Coast University Hospital who was medevaced from Nauru with a terminal illness 4 weeks ago and is lonely for support and communication in his own language, for the spiritual support he yearns for visitors from his community. And I remember especially the courageous mother of Fari Boris who now remains imprisoned on Nauru with her severely damaged younger son Ali, who's 12, and her widowed daughter-in-law, mourning her beautiful 25-year-old boy who couldn't bear it any longer after 5 years of torment. It's Fariboz's body, which lies here in a morgue in Brisbane, waiting for burial. And the government of Turnbull, with no heart, prevents his closest family from burying him. Fazile Mansour Begi, courageous mother of Faribars, I salute you. Your fight for the human rights of your sons, your family, are iconic. What a mother you are in the great tradition of warrior women. How dare your pleas to the minister, to all politicians, to all public servants, the people with hearts of stone, go unanswered. Thank you, RAC, for the sustained lobbying of the last 5 years and before. lobbying to close offshore detention and holding centres. Thank you to my fellow Australians who provide comfort, friendship and practical support to the persecuted and discriminated refugees on temporary visas and the asylum seekers now denied all income support, made deliberately destitute by that monster, that Minister Dutton. I ask you, keep yourself informed so that you can spread the word. End the mistreatment of men, women and children who seek asylum as is their legal right. Thank you.